This is my part two of raising your kids, what to do and what not to do. Most of these things I've learned through the years. I didn't know it in the beginning. I wish I would have. So that's why I want to tell you. And some of them I've observed other parents doing, and I'm thinking, what are you doing? Teaching your kids that. The first thing is your fears. Don't put your fears upon your children. If you're scared of spiders and they're little children and they see you screaming because there's a spider in the room, big mistake. Don't do that. Just suck it up and pretend it's, squish it or something. But don't be teaching your kids that to be scared of things. When my littlest one was, little ants were crawling around and they at first tried to be scared, and I would pick them up and say, look, it's your friend, it won't hurt you, it's your little friend, whatever. But don't teach them unless maybe it's scorpions and you live in that horrible country with scorpions. We never lived in a country like that. We didn't have any poisonous snakes, we didn't have any scorpions, or there might have been black widows, but they didn't live where we live or anywhere I lived. But anyway, I've seen grown men scream at a spider. How did they get that way? Step on it, squish it if you're scared of it. Okay, the next thing. I have my list here. I'm going to check off as I go because even with glasses, my eyesight's not too good. And we got to keep it moving. We don't want this to take forever. We want to learn how to raise our kids quickly so we don't make mistakes. I had one friend when my kids were teenagers, and he called, and I don't know what to do. My daughter got drunk last night. And I said, I didn't know what to tell him because he got drunk all the time. What are you going to say? Don't do like me. Do like me. Don't, what are you going to say? So I said, well, in my religion, we don't drink. We don't, let ourselves get that way. And so lead by example. Maybe if you don't want your kids to do something, then maybe you better not, so that they will follow your example. Don't smoke pot. Maybe they won't. If you're smoking pot, then when they get old enough, they want to join right in. I've seen that happen, sadly enough, with some of my grandkids. Not me. All right. Now, I've seen this happen. I never did it, but I've seen it. All right. I have children that have to go, or you may have children that have to go to the other parent for visitation. I've seen these mothers go and hug their child goodbye, crying to him, I will miss you so much while you're gone, hugging him. I'm thinking, what are you doing? That little kid's going to get in the car to go with the other parent, thinking, oh no, my mom's crying back there. I'm leaving her. Now, I was a tender-hearted child, and I have some tender-hearted children. They would, the whole time they were gone, they would have thought, my mother is crying the whole time. I feel it's all my fault. I feel so bad. Don't do that. You tell your children, have a good time with your dad or whoever. Have a good time. And then, I'll be thinking of you. Have a good time. Then when they get back, you can say, oh, I missed you so much. And, I'm glad you're back. But don't send them off with being worried and you're crying. That just puts to the psyche in the child that the whole time that they're going to be worrying about their mother. All right, the next thing. My little kids would come home sometimes and talk about another child, like, oh, they had the worst clothes or they stunk or whatever. And I would get after them and I would tell them that it's not the child's fault, it's the parents' fault. The parents are not dressing the child correctly, making them take a bath. The parents are not there for them. So do not come down on the child and criticize them because it's not their fault. Just look at them and feel sorry for them. And I tried to teach them that. And another thing is, I had one child, Trevor, the school teacher. He was always out for the underdog. I was proud of him. If there was a kid getting bullied or left out, he always stood up for them and, was their friend. Well, when he was in high school, he had a friend named Gary Fisher, and I think that was his name. And I got a call from the principal, and Trevor was going to be suspended from school because he got in a fight. So I went to the school. My kids got me in far more trouble than I ever got myself into. So I went to the school in the principal's office, and then I heard the story. Um, Kids were picking on Gary Fisher and calling him names, making fun of him. And so Trevor stepped in to protect him and punched the kid and told him to shut up. And so then he got suspended from school. And I'm like, he got in trouble for that? And I told the principal, that's what I've taught my son to do. I'm proud of him for sticking up for the bully. And, you know, when I got Trevor home, he goes, Mom, I just felt so sorry for every day of his whole, how would you like every day of your whole life, someone calling you names and making fun of you? And he goes, I couldn't take it anymore. So I had to shut that kid up. Well, I was proud of Trevor. And usually, if they get suspended from school or detention or something, then you're not supposed to let him watch TV and you're not supposed to let him do anything. Nope. I was proud of Trevor and I said, I'm glad you stood up for the underdog. You can watch all the TV you wanted. Guess what he watched? The Lorena Bobbitt trial on TV. If you don't know what that is, look it up. And anyway, I taught my children to stick up for the underdog and to not be a bully. And I think it's parents' responsibility to teach their kids that. Maybe we wouldn't have so many bullies in the school if parents would teach them that. Oh, and when they were little, and as grandkids, I still have this problem. Children come in the door and they drop their coats right at the door in their backpacks. And I would go over there and I would step on their coat on purpose and say, Is this a rug I am supposed to dry my feet on? Why is this coat right here on the floor? And so I would wipe my feet on it, and they learned quick. Don't drop your coat right there. Someone's going to wipe their feet. And the same thing is around the toilet. They take their clothes off and they put their clothes on the floor around the toilet. Who would want your clothes around the toilet? I said, you know, those boys aren't very good aims. Somebody's going to come in and pee, and you're thinking you're going to put those clothes back on, like, they're going swimming in the hot tub and they take their clothes off to go in the hot tub and they're going to put them back on. And they've left them around the toilet. And I just really get after them. I don't just say, don't do it. I always give a reason. Uh, some boy could be peeing and miss, and then your clothes are going to be so. Um, let's on my list. All right, here's another thing I observed because I learned it as a child. Um, I had a younger sister that's beautiful. I'll admit, she was beautiful growing up. Her complexion was beautiful. Her hair, she didn't even have to comb it. It was just beautiful how it fell. Well, all my life, she was 4 years younger than me, and all my life that I remember, because I don't remember the first 4 years, but after that, I grew up hearing people compliment her. Look how beautiful she is. Look how beautiful her skin is. Her hair is so beautiful. As I sit there with my kind of wavy, curly, frizzy hair, with my complexion that is like freckled, with my, all the faults that I had. And I had to hear that constant all my growing up years. It's no fault of hers. I realize that. It's the fault of stupid people. One day I'm here and my husband, we have two little grandkids here. And one of them has beautiful thick hair, that you would die for. And the other, and it grows fast. She's always cutting it to. The other one has hair that is like still trying to come in and kind of, you know, it's blonde, but it's pretty. And the other one's dark haired. What does my husband do? He goes, Oh, look at her. Her hair is the most beautiful hair you've ever seen. And then he says nothing about the other one. It infuriated me. And so, of course, I piped up and I said, and then look at her. She has beautiful blonde hair that we would love to have blonde hair. So if you are complimenting one child in front of other children, you got to give them all a compliment. You're going to make them. I grew up with big hang-ups because I always had to hear how my sister's, beautiful and I'm not. And then it makes you feel like you are less than. You give everybody a compliment, not just one child. Oh, that makes sense. And I don't understand why people can't see that right away, that they're giving somebody a compliment in front of the other one. Give them all a compliment or don't give any. And I had to get after my husband afterwards, not in front of the kids, but I told him, don't do that ever again. That was done to me always. And we learn by how we grew up, don't you think? All right. Um, Now here's two big things I learned. I'm saving them for the end. All right. I already said that one. Okay. Um, Little children, they learn to manipulate the parents quite well. And if you're not the boss, then they learn how to be the boss and they can manipulate their parents and they know how to do it. So you have to remember you are always the boss and don't let the child win ever. Um, I've seen this happen. A little child doesn't want to do anything. We'll say they're not too little because you got to teach them when they're like 3 and under. By the time they get older, you've lost control and they're going to control you probably. So when they're little and they don't want to go somewhere or do something, and I've seen parents just let them win. Then when they get a little bit older, 10 or 12, they don't want to go to church. Okay, you don't have to. I don't want to wear a dress. Okay, you don't have to. What are you doing? In the real world, you have to do things sometimes you don't want to do. You have to wear a uniform that you don't want to wear. What about if you would get a job, military, whatever? I don't want to wear that. Well, you've got to. So to me, if your child doesn't want to wear a dress to this thing, well, sorry, you have to because that's the rules. We have to abide by the rules of the land, and that's the rule of the school or whatever. You got to do it. When I was growing up, we had to wear dresses to school every day. We didn't want to, but you had to. In life, you got to teach these children that they've got to do things that they don't want to do sometimes. And, maybe you don't want to go, but you have to because when you're an adult, you're going to have to. And I've seen these kids and they're raised and they don't have any responsibilities. They get to choose what they want to do. And it's because the parents didn't teach them growing up that sometimes I'm the boss and you got to do what I say. And even as teenagers, and if they won't do it, okay, then you're not driving this week. Whatever what they love to do most, driving. Maybe it's uh, their phones. Maybe it's you can't take away food and you can't take away the necessities of life, but you can take away. I always forgot when my kid was grounded, and then they would go, and I go, "Oh, I forgot that child was grounded." But you know, take away the things they love, like their phones and their laptops, their game, whatever. They'll learn fast if they don't break the house up. I've seen those kids break your whole house up. Call the police because they got to learn that there is always a boss over them. All right, here's one thing that's been a big problem in my life because my husband and I disagree. So that it has a problem with raising your kids. We had one daughter who was very much in debt and owed a lot of money. And so she asked her dad to help her. And he said, you know, and then she made all these promises. I'm gonna rip up my credit cards. I'm not gonna use them anymore. And if I just get out of debt, then I can get on my feet again and I'll do everything right. I've learned my lesson. So I said, no, Jamie, I don't think we should pay him off because then she'll have good credit and she can just charge them all up again. Well, no, he said, I told her to rip them up and throw them away. If you all you have to do is call the company and go, I lost my card, can I have another one? Oh, they'll gladly send you one. Plus you pay them off, you have better credit than ever. So I went to town one day and when I came back, there he is writing checks out to all her credit cards and her bills, even paid for her car. We almost got a divorce over that one. My grown kids had to file bankruptcy, a couple of them, because they did it. They got to learn for themselves. And they did learn how to budget better and how it is without good credit and how it is without a credit card. And so he said, I thought a loving father should help his child out. So I'm just going to leave it up to you. Do you think that is a loving parent should do that? Or do you think, like I let my kids have to file bankruptcy so they'll learn how to, that, mom, dad's not going to bail you out? I would take groceries over to a hungry child. I wouldn't let them starve. Might fill some gas in their tank so they could get to work, but I would never pay off their bills when they went and had fun and charged everything up and stupidly did that. You got to learn. So if you're young, maybe you guys should talk about that with your spouse and see what are we going to do when our child comes to us and wants money. All right, and here's the other big issue that most people don't have, but I do with children. Raise a child and you have, um, let's say you have a giant portfolio, or you have land, or you have ownings of some kind, own a lot of real estate. All right, so you tell your child your business. Someday you're going to inherit my business. Someday you're going to inherit my portfolio. Someday you're going to inherit all this. It's going to be yours someday. The child grows up thinking, just can't wait for my dad to turn it all over to me and I'm going to be rich. This was my ex-husband. He grew up, his parents owned like the San Joaquin Valley in California. There's even a museum there after his ancestors because they settled it. And there were all these aunts, the family, and they didn't get married. So then they all died, and then all the land ended up in my husband's inheritance. Well, he knew that. So he didn't go to college. He didn't go get a career. He thought, I'm just going to inherit all that money, all that land. I don't need it. I don't need to, that's going to be my job. Just live off the land. So he never improved himself. And I know I heard Marie Osmond say that too, that she said, my kids aren't getting anything, so they better go and get their college and whatever they're going to be on their own. And Mr. Huntsman, that owns the Huntsman Center in Salt Lake, I know he said that. My kids aren't inheriting anything, so I hope they're not counting on anything. That's what you need to tell your kids so they will be the best they can be and do what they need to do. Not think that they are going to inherit everything that Papa has. So don't tell your kids that. All right. Am I touching on everything? The main thing we need to realize is if you don't laugh at some of these things, you'll cry. That's what I learned in my whole life. And the other thing is, when your kids get to be the right age, and you don't have control over them anymore, you can't hold their cell phone in, collateral. You can't ground them. You just have hope that you have taught them by now, because they're going to be adults and they're leaving home and they have their own agency to choose what they want. Whether they make mistakes or whether they make it and do everything right, it's on their head. And we had our journey. All of us parents have gone through our journey. We've made mistakes. We've had to learn from them, hopefully. And now it's our children's turn when they're adults to learn, and it's their journey. So don't beat yourself up. I should have done this. I should have done that. They're adults now and it's their agency. And, we all hear about don't enable them and everything. Well, I'm a loving parent, and I've had grown kids live with me at times in their struggles. And I think we can be a loving parent, but we need to let them learn from their mistakes and learn that, they're an adult now. So don't come running to mom and dad. Don't live at home forever. Don't think that I'm going to be paying off all your problems, because I'm not. And you got to raise them to know that. I never asked my parents for anything, maybe to babysit, but no money, nothing, because they raised me to know that I'm an adult and now it's my life. All right. I hope maybe one of these things helped you with raising your kids, or maybe just be observant to other parents and how they do things, or how their children turned out and what rules they had for their kids. All right, have a good day. That's a 20-minute video. If you're still watching, subscribe and like and tune back with me, because I might have a part 3 to raising your kids.